Hi, everybody.
Welcome back. He's Justice.
She's Faith.
And together we make up the
Justice and Faith Show.
Yes. And then we have our special guest again. Arabella wanted to join us. And today's a little informal. As you can tell, we're not even matching outfits. Like, you can tell that this
I got
is
on
a
a
little
pullover
informal.
hoodie. I don't even wear pullover hoodies except for right in this moment.
But we are talking about COVID because at the beginning of our last episode and like a little bit throughout, we talked about how he wasn't feeling great. That was the beginning of COVID for us.
It was?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
So,
I guess
so
COVID
it
affects
was,
your
we
memory.
were trying to keep our fingers crossed that we were not sick and we did not have it, but turns out we found out that we did have it.
Your
And
fingers?
our fingers. We had our fingers crossed, but it turns out that we did have it. So we wanted to hop on and do a little quick video about it, about our experience, because his experience and my experience is totally different.
Where did an accent come from? I think COVID gave her an accent.
So we're going to talk about COVID and how it affected us. Let me adjust this a little bit. I feel like I'm out of the screen. There we go. So anyway, you go first. How did COVID affect
No, y'all
you?
go first because it actually affected me.
Well, like I said, last time we had a video, he was coughing and like that was like the beginning stages of it. But for me, I got tested because he was sick and I was like, well, maybe I'm just asymptomatic and I still have it, blah, blah, blah. All the stuff that they talk about in the news and whatnot, like you could still have it. So I went and got tested. Lo and behold, I did have it. My worst symptom was probably a stuffy nose, like at the worst, which was barely anything, because I didn't think I really had anything. We did not get the Munchkin tested, but did you feel any symptoms?
Not at all.
Not at all? Nothing?
No.
Not even a stuffy nose?
I only had a runny nose
A runny
because it was
nose?
She
cold.
had this phantom
Oh,
headache
there we go.
that she brought out. She was like, I have this headache.
Because I think she was feeling left
That's
out.
exactly how she did it. And then she laughed, and then she said, I have a headache. Ha ha ha.
So
And I'm like,
she
this
was
is-
feeling left
so
out. She
nothing's-
wanted to have the COVID
nothing's
too.
new.
But yeah, my worst symptom was a stuffy nose. There was one day that I was a little lethargic, like the first
That happens to you
day-ish.
at least
But-
once a month anyway.
But other than that, I was totally fine. I didn't really have any symptoms. I was kind of annoyed more than anything because I was like, I feel fine and I have to stop working. All of my jobs went virtual or not at all because I work in a salon, so obviously you can't do that virtually. But the school I teach at, I started doing that virtually, which, by the way, I have a newfound respect for anybody who has to do virtual school all the time because it sucks. So...
And you got to work from home, so you got to see what it felt like for me. Because
Yeah.
you only spent, just like today, you were like, do you see what I'm using? And sometimes y'all might look at me and think that I'm acting
'Cause you
crazy
live with
because
me.
it's these extra sounds, but I'm like, I can tune both of you out perfectly fine now. But then if you add like two other small sounds, it's like, it's too much. So sometimes I'm like, yo, and they're like,
yeah.
he's being dramatic. I'm not being dramatic
Yeah.
because now you've experienced the
Well, yeah,
fact it's
because I was
not
working.
easy to work from
yeah,
home.
I was working today, and the TV was on, and I was like, "That's fine. It is what it is." But then
I go into my room dragging the cat in the basket.
She starts playing with the cat all crazy. He starts cooking dinner, and I'm just like, "This is too much. I need to focus on school. I'm in the middle of a Zoom with my students trying to do something."
And you had on headphones.
I was like, so yeah, it was not fun. Anyway, so what were your symptoms, my love?
So I didn't get any of the not tasting, not smelling.
Right,
the other
yeah.
one. I didn't get any of that. The first thing that grabbed me and was the worst symptom, bar none, was the body aches. Like the body aches that happened first. So when I first started getting sick, I didn't really think too much about it, simply because it's the way I always start getting sick. The only thing that made me think differently was the fact that I was sick, like my regular sickness, I think like October. And I was like, okay, but I don't get sick back to back. Like I get sick maybe twice a year, and it almost happens all at the same time. It's probably like a seasonal thing. So when it happened, I was like, okay, the body aches were different because at first I had like a lower back pain, and I had that previously from going to the gym and doing a deadlift, and it just never really recovered.
Mm-hmm.
So it started happening more on my lower back. Then all of a sudden it was just a crippling. I wish I could really describe the way that it felt, because I said it felt like I was run over by a truck. That's not hyperbole. Like when I say I was like, I couldn't even lay in the bed. It actually was very uncomfortable to lay in the bed. It was uncomfortable to lay down. Like, so I was up and I was down and I was up and I was down. I spent a lot of time laying on the floor because it actually was the most comfortable place for me to be, because I had the support of the floor, even though that had its pain. And then I put my hands in weird places to kind of provide extra, just kind of support for myself, which caused all these like small aches and pains throughout my body. And it was really bad. Like when I think about how it was longer than I think, but I know for at least 3 days, like the physical pain was the worst. The next thing was my cough, because the cough happened a lot of times when I laid down, which drove me crazy because I wasn't able to sleep. And at the first couple of days, I think we still slept in the same bed together.
Yeah.
Like nothing really changed. And that was before you were tested. But once you got tested, you were like, well, who's taking the room? And who's doing this? And I was like, well, we already all got it.
And then Faith told me, oh, when all of us get sick, Daddy probably you said you were going to take the living room. Daddy would take the bedroom, I living in my room.
What you were doing anyway.
Yeah, basically.
But and I can't be in a room because it feels like jail to me, because it's cooler and it's just the farthest room away. There's no TV in there. I just I couldn't really do it. So I spent most of my time in the living room.
The hardest part for me was remembering that I'm not supposed to get close to him, because I'm a very touchy person, and I'm pretty sure we talked about that in another podcast somewhere down the line. I'm a very touchy person. There's always contact.
You're very touchy to me.
Yeah. Sorry if that was unclear, but
it is unclear. You're not naturally a touchy person.
I'm very touchy towards you.
Opposite.
I always have my hand on his hand or on his leg, or I'm always like hugging him, kissing him, touching him somehow. I'm like, it's always, there's a little bit of contact. And then not being able to do that, and like constantly reminding myself, don't give him a kiss, don't like give him a hug, stay away from him, like that kind of thing. That was probably the hardest for me.
Why your fingers around him and stab me in the eye?
As far as work is concerned, I actually lost work. Not because but it's just simply the thing that I knew, and the thing that you find out is that like COVID scares people. So when it doesn't hit close to home, you don't think about it. But when it hits close to home, you're kind of like, eesh. Like, so, I had a per diem job, and I ended up losing those hours, at least for right now, because of the influx of COVID. And, that parent doesn't want multiple people in the home. And I'm very much understanding of that, because as much as I want my daughter to be involved in things, going through this experience made me really look at things where it's kind of like, and I'm not going to lie, like it was so important for me to just have her still have a regular life and be a kid. Mm-hmm. I didn't really care about COVID. And I'm being honest, like I didn't care about her playing basketball or going to dance or anything like that, because I wanted her to still be able to live her life, but we've seen, like I knew it, but it sucked more for me because I had to quarantine, like I'm not supposed to go anywhere and there's nowhere for me to go. Yeah. Before it's like it's one or the other.
Right now.
So it's like, so we have a shutdown and I'm sick and I'm not supposed to go anywhere. So there was actually days where I never even stepped outside, and I can't remember a time where I haven't stepped outside for multiple days in my entire life. And in regard to like Faith, like she actually, you could talk about like the depression.
Yeah, no, I had to. I'm a very schedule, very like I have to have my life planned out, and like it has to be a certain way. Completely my entire schedule leaving me sucked so bad. Like I had nowhere to go, I had nothing to do, I felt like couldn't be close to my husband. Like it was just bad. I couldn't, even when I did.
It messed up our 30-day thing too. We're going to revisit that when we don't have the child around. But the first podcast of the new year, I think, was supposed to be a 30-day adult challenge. And that screwed us up till
Yeah.
I'm highly upset about that. So we're going to have to run that back in like February.
So for me, I got like a little bit of like, it wasn't like bad, but like it was hard for me to wake up in the morning because I was like, there's literally nothing for me to do.
I thought about that this morning. It was 10:43, and I'm looking at the clock. But then I was like, I totally understood it because I was like,
the gym
she's
is closed.
probably like, what's the point of me even waking up? And I sat here where I was working. But I sat here and I was like, why isn't she up yet? Because I've been getting up at like 7 now.
Working virtually is fine. I have been doing that. But
mentally, you gotta prepare differently.
Is on school and he is working as well. If I try to get on, the internet lags. So it's like, I can't, she's at school, he's on work. I can't work right now anyway. The gym is closed. I'm not supposed to go anywhere. I've only been out of the house once or twice to get like essentials that we needed because he couldn't go anywhere. So it's like, I had no motivation to do anything. I was kind of depressed because I was like, this is just really crappy.
Which is crazy
Especially
because out of all of
holiday.
us, I would think that I would be the absolute worst. And I probably would if it was reversed, but I would my life wouldn't have probably changed. If you were the one that had most of the symptoms and were sick, I'd have took care of you. However, I probably would have still been out and about because I felt okay.
Yeah.
Because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
So
because I still tried to not go. I mean, it kind of was lucky that we had another shutdown because it forced us.
It happened like right at the same time. Like literally when I was about to tell the Olivets that she wasn't going back for a while until
the next day was the last day.
It was the next day anyway. The gym shut down.
Yeah.
Within that couple days, like everything. So
restaurants, literally everything that we were doing, gym, restaurants, movies, like her
and I
dance.
said it's probably the best time for us if we were going to. I don't know how people get it and if they get it again or whatever, but I said if we were going to get it, it's probably the best time for us to get it was now because as much as it impeded on our life the last 10 days, it is not as bad as it could have been. Because if this happened a little bit earlier in your tenure for schooling, it probably would have been a lot worse for you.
Yeah.
The saving grace is probably the fact that you're closer to the end.
Yeah. And they literally just okayed a hybrid schedule at the school that I teach at. So now they were already getting ready to do virtual anyway. So like it did work out pretty nicely. But the other part of this that we wanted to get across to people is COVID's real. Like it's a real thing. And we have firsthand experience that you can have someone who has pretty bad symptoms and someone who has almost nothing.
Like I couldn't even text people. Like it was, I can't explain it. My tiredness.
It was just weak.
I had a weakness. I had no appetite. I lost 15 pounds. So I can't say the only good thing. We'll see how this works out. But I had a goal of getting into the 250s in December. Well, I'm in the 240s.
Yep.
So that tells you how like.
Because he didn't eat. That was the other thing. He
had
no
appetite.
Like
oranges.
So he lost the weight, but he lost it like in a bad way. You're not supposed to lose
I probably lost mostly like muscle, but I mean, hey, whatever. You lose it. I'll figure out how to get the muscle back. But unfortunately for me, having that additional poundage on me, it kept me safe. But it's very strange. But even the thought of food, some foods made me like I was thinking about fried fish. I thought about it today because Arabella said something about becoming a pescatarian, and I was like, damn, I could think about fried fish again. I couldn't think about anything because I really couldn't think about anything because of my pain. All I could think of is I need to get stronger. I need to get healthier. Shout out, there's a lot of people who reached out to me during this time, and of all the things that's happened during the time that I was sick, I think I'm most appreciative of these people who reached out, and they didn't reach out with, you're in my prayers and whatever. Like, there were people who reached out consistently, people I don't have long-standing relationships with, and that to me was such a motivating factor to try to get healthier so I could spend more time with these people, so I could build stronger relationships with them, because what it made me understand is that even though I had people that were reaching out to me about Facebook posts. They were like, we need your posts. Like there were people who were reaching out to me about the gym and just different stuff because I wasn't posting. I didn't want to tell anybody I had COVID or we had COVID because I don't want to talk about the struggle. I wanted to talk about the after effects. Like we made it through because I wouldn't want to say it 3 days in and then it gets worse and I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear we are in our prayers and our thoughts and stuff because that's not how I am. If somebody calls me and they're sick or they're discouraged or something like that, I will talk and give as much advice as I can. I will be a sounding board. You will be in my prayers, but I'll probably never say you'll be in my prayers because it sounds cliche. And everybody's literally everyone's in my prayers anyway, whether I know you or not. So the whole thing for me was I need to get stronger. I need to get healthier. Hopefully we pull through the other side. And we actually have a firsthand account of, we like to talk about things we have experience with. Now we have experience with COVID. Yeah. I have experience with COVID with these specific symptoms that are not ones that a lot of other people have.
Yeah.
And then I can listen to other people. But I know people now who've had COVID as well. And the first thing I did was call my friends who had it. And I said, have you experienced this? He didn't experience that. Yeah. He experienced something different. His wife experienced something different. And so my experiences are different. But the whole of it is that it is a very real thing. For those people who are still thinking somehow it's a hoax, everybody thinks this is the problem with COVID from the beginning. The reason why it probably spread the way that it spread, because think of how many diseases have run rampant through the world, through the United States.
People have forgotten about those ones.
Not about just forgetting, love. It's about us just, we'll make it through. We'll get through it. Yeah. And we just think, because it doesn't affect us. Like if there's hunger in the Middle East, it doesn't affect me. Right. It affects them. Or so we don't think. But it's just like, no, if my neighbor, I have an older neighbor, he saw me yesterday. I specifically tried my best just to kind of stay away from him because he's 80 years old. And we talk and he gets close and he talks to me. If I told him, I had COVID, you're like, oh, young fella. Like he would still talk to me and stuff. But to me, I want to make sure that I'm fully healed. I want to make sure we're fully healed before I have the interaction with him because we live right across from him. Even walking in the hallway, I told Faith, I said, you still need to have a mask on. Because if you walk into the hallway and then he walks in the hallway or his wife walks into the hallway, I don't want that to be on my conscience or everything like that. So the whole experience, we already understood that it was a real thing. Yeah. We never walked around thinking that
we were never reckless with it, and that was the thing that I did want to talk about. Like we were never reckless about it, but of course, like everything, it's one of those things you're not always perfect.
I probably was closer to following the rules in regard to this than anything in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we wore masks, we canceled plans, we washed our hands, I didn't wash my hands for 20 seconds maybe. Or like
don't brush your teeth for 2 minutes either.
I do actually now because I have that thing with my
COVID makes you lie. Fellas, you said I got COVID, that's why I'm lying.
So it's one of those things where we weren't perfect with it, but we never really took it as like a joke or anything. We knew it was real. So that was something else I wanted to talk about. Like, even if you do follow the guidelines and the protocols and all of that stuff, it's still a possibility that you could get like sick. And it's like, you got to do what you can to avoid it and protect the people that you love. And that's why we canceled plans with family and we
had to cancel even more plans. When it comes down to it, we had Thanksgiving was
canceled.
Christmas is canceled.
Christmas is not for you. Your mother said whatever. That's on her. I mean, she wants to she could go. But not Friendsgiving. Our thing Sunday. We just supposed to have with some of friends.
Somewhere on Sunday.
And then and we're still not fully cleared yet. We just took another COVID test just to try to get a negative, and
fingers crossed.
And Daddy said this day or Monday was going to be the day he felt better, which was true.
Yeah. So, but when it comes down to it, if we get another positive test, then we have to figure out how to test again and then wait another. And depending on when we can schedule another test and have to wait, it still could be another time. And Faith's hating on me because I could technically go back to my one per diem job.
Yeah. But I get it because nothing was wrong with her, and you were having heart attacks over there. In
Well,
the
Right,
bathroom.
thank you. Thank
no,
you.
no. But the fact of the matter is, I probably could have still been working if it wasn't for the fact I kind of just put it out there, like, hey, I'm not well, like I'm not physically able to work. But you know me, if the situation was reversed, even having COVID, I still would have worked as long as they allowed me to.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's kind of what
We need the
happens
money.
with me at the salon. Like I told him
until they told you no.
Yeah. I told
And,
him my
and
husband-
that was funny because we talked about that for a long time, like what would happen if COVID happened.
yeah.
And we talked about the fact that it's not just a physical issue, it's a moral and ethical issue as well.
Yeah.
And so when I first got sick, I told her, I'm like, I forgot what I did. You said something to me. I said, well, you're still going to work. And you're like, well, I'm not showing symptoms and I'm double gloving and masking and all that. And I'm like, that's that. I could say she's morally ambiguous. I said, that's what I'm talking about right there, because in my head, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about money lost.
Yeah, it's a money thing. It's a physical thing. If I don't work, I don't make that money. If I don't make that money, are we gonna hurt? Like,
Yeah, when I was sitting, I remember sitting there at a point, and it's so funny because I couldn't go out, so I couldn't shop, so I still had
That's
money.
his hobby.
So I'm looking at my bank account, so I'm like, oh my gosh. But I'm like, wait a minute, I still got money because I wasn't able to go out. I've been going out the last 2 days, but I wasn't able to go out, so I was like, okay. But when I thought about it as a whole, it was the first time I think I ever sat there and I went, we're blessed enough to be able to be in a situation where a couple weeks or a little bit of nuance here and there as far as finances, we would have figured it out.
and honestly, what really helped me not feel so bad about everything is that I was able to, because I am in a transition at my teaching job where I'm going from teaching one thing to teaching another thing. So I have all of this training stuff that I'm supposed to be doing. So she's letting me do that virtually and I can do that from home. So I've been able to actually still bring in, like, still work more than I would have anyway. So it's actually nice. That's the one thing that I really feel is a blessing and all of this.
I think the blessing really is the fact that there was no panic. No matter how bad I felt, there's a sense of relief. Like,
The only person who kept asking was my grandma, because I told her, and she's like, "Oh, I hope he feels better." Then every day I was calling her, and she's like, "Does he feel better?"
and I just said I haven't even heard from Mima. Mima even reach out to me herself, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, because she was more worried about whenever he feels better, I can finally see my granddaughter again.
Well, but it would. I don't think it was really about that, because if any of them had said they wanted to take her, I was kind of hoping one of them were going to say, "Do you want us just to take her?" But her mother was so meticulous. Did you guys take your test yet? Okay. Now, we do 15 minutes, and I'm like, well, can I get well, it's only for patients. I'm like, well, why are you telling me
exactly.
this? And she's all like, so she's so like meticulous about asking me almost every day. I ain't talked to that much for her. So, but the COVID, she's talking to me every day. Good morning. How are your symptoms? I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, do you want to take this kid or not? Because she's good right now. Because to me, I would have rather Arabella had been somewhere where she could have, once again, lived more regular life.
Right.
The benefit.
The one thing, though, is she wouldn't have really been, she would have been in another location, but everything she was doing has canceled anyway.
No, but it's the different location. Because not only that, it's like she's coming out talking to me or whatever, and I'm like, I'm dead to the world.
At her house, I have my sister and I have other kids.
Yeah, she has other stuff to do, like, so it's just a different vantage. Here she has her whole life that includes the Olivets and basketball or whatever she's involved in, and dance and everything like that. When she goes to Mima or her mother's house, it's a whole different set of things where she could have still been open to. So it's like, okay, I can't do these things, but I could do these other things, and I was aware of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't afford, like, if I ask, you can't afford, and you don't actually want to ask somebody, like, well, do you want to, because it's not it's a risk. Even though she didn't show symptoms or anything like that, her being around,
right?
It's just like her mother had said,
it's not really
assumed.
It's not really a clear thing on kids and how they get it, and
right. And the process to get her tested was way different than ours. And actually was playing phone tag with people and whatever. But the whole situation, it kind of reminded me of back in the beginning of the pandemic when we all kind of were together, and it was just very testy. Like,
Right.
once again, it's very testy. They're arguing. I'm sick, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like this seems very freaking familiar. But the benefits to it is, I think that once people start feeling better and they clear up, you don't take it quite as much for granted, because it can get snatched away from you at any moment. And I know for just when we really think about it, like, the year is gone. It's December. We're a couple weeks from a new year, and it's kind of amazing to think about how little we actually were able to do.
Yeah.
But how many people made it through? How many people are resilient?
Yeah.
Who's had COVID and who's dealt with the byproducts of COVID?
Yeah.
And I think about.
I can't even imagine if I had to live through this year and I lost someone close to me. Like, on top of all the depression of not being able to go anywhere or do anything and being afraid of this, and then on top of that, you just lost somebody as well. Like,
that's
Our
funny.
church lost 2 people.
Which church?
Nemo's church.
Nemo's church.
Because
Oh,
last
my
night
God.
someone passed away, and then someone else passed away from the virus.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because all of my years that I live are R years. They all start with R. It's a thing that I do. And I forgot what my original R year was, but I think it's now resiliency. I think 2020, the R year is resiliency, and then I think 2021 is going to be reclamation. It's just getting back to a sense of normalcy. Fortunately, and I don't know how people feel about this, but there's a vaccine, or there's vaccines out there. I think people are taking a little bit better care as far as COVID as a whole. I think people are more knowledgeable, but I think they're taking calculated risks now. So before, where it's just like people are willy-nilly, I think they're just kind of like, if you're a business owner or something, I think they're just kind of like, we're going to do the best that we can with this situation, but we still have to live. And I can respect that. And then I can also respect the fact that some people are willing to take a risk to live regular life, because if we really think about how life was before COVID, we were all dealing with crap. We're all dealing with something. There's people dealing with depression and all types of different things before COVID.
And the kids be bullied.
And you know what? Something about when we talk about kids being bullied by kids is one thing. Kids being bullied by their parents or in their homes is because you can't escape that. Like, and people don't understand that. Sometimes you go to school and you have a bully and you can't wait to get home from that bully. But sometimes your biggest bully is at home. It could be your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, an aunt, an uncle, somebody who lives with you, and just different things like that. So it creates this, I want to say, this idea that you have to be better. This year, as a father and as a husband, has taught me that I have to be better, because we've been forced to be, us three have been forced to be in closer quarters than ever. And
today I had to take a break from Faith.
y'all probably need more breaks than anything. But it forces you to deal with stuff, because you can't, we only have but so many rooms. So Faith got mad at me the other day and just walked to the room and closed the door. Farabella goes, gets mad, she walks. I'm usually the odd man out, because I'm never walking into the room and closing the door, because I just don't like being in there like that.
Yeah, I just stomping away.
I want to walk out. And being sick, I got mad one time, and all I could do was just lay on the floor and be pathetic.
Go in the car and listen to your rock music.
I couldn't even do that because it hurt.
You're weak.
So, are there any closing statements we want to make? What about you? Any closing statements about COVID?
You asked to be here, so you better provide something.
Don't be going to people's places and acting like it's regular. You need to take precautions.
You need to take precautions.
Wash your hands.
Wash your
Put
hands.
a mask on.
Put a mask
Wear
on.
gloves.
Wear gloves. Okay.
Wear a whole bodysuit if you want
A
to.
hazmat suit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even protect your animals.
Protect your animals.
That is true. Protect your. I've been worried about Jack. I ain't gonna lie. Jack jumped in my own. Jack stayed away from me for most of the time.
Oh, they don't get it the same way.
Oh well, he got in my and he looked at me. It was like we locked eyes. It was like he was like, "I love you," and I'm taking this risk. And he was in my arms, and I said, "Oh, maybe that's why he was scratching.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was reintroducing
He was
us to regular
praying to
life.
God.
He wasn't praying to God because he would have died with all the scratching waking me up."
So, all right. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to tell you people that it's real.
So I got
Stop sleeping on COVID.
This is going to be our last one before the new
Oh
year.
yeah, this is the last one till 2021.
Isn't that kind of? It's funny as heck. We made it through the whole year without the COVID, and then we get it at the end of the year to close out the year. We're closing out the year with COVID.
Like,
That's that to me. That's slightly ironic.
Next year we're on to bigger and better things. 2021
Yes.
is going to be wonderful.
The
measles.
measles.
Speak it into existence. Not the measles.
Ebola. No.
my birthday's in 2 months.
There we go. She's gonna be double digits.
Double digits.
So bigger and better things next year. Speak it into existence and own it and claim it.
Let's show the holiday.
Reclamation. That's next year. 2021 year of reclamation.
All right. So until next time,
Signing off. So keep your faith strong.
and maintain justice.
Bye.
Maintain your justice.
Maintain.
Maybe by next year
Your
she'll
justice.
figure out how to say the damn COVID.
Bye.
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 See you next